Captain Marisol Mare Reyes sat alone in the cockpit of her battered shuttle, the Starfire Falcon. Outside her window, the vast Elthar expanse spread like an endless sea of stars. The air inside was stale. The hum of the engines was the only company she had. Every fiber of her being told her this was madness. Yet she gripped the controls and guided the ship toward the glowing towers of the Drathari Citadel. No human had ever landed here before. The Drathari Empire lay at the far edge of surveyed space. Few knew much about it. Traders spoke in hushed tones about strange creatures with glowing eyes. Scholars wrote rumors of a ruler so powerful that not one single visitor left alive after a night in her court. Stories claimed the alien queen held power over life and death. Even other alien races steered clear. The challenge, however, was broadcast across dozens of systems. Survive one night in the Queen's palace, prove your bravery, live, and you claim untold rewards. Mare had heard the call in a dimly lit tavern on Orion Station. The barkeep had shown her the holovid, an elegant chamber carved from black crystal lit by veins of blue light. Alone in that palace, even the bravest of aliens had turned and fled, if they had the chance at all. But Mare saw something else. Opportunity. Humanity had earned a reputation as reckless bar brawlers, but they also had courage. They had heart. She wanted the galaxy to know. She tapped a call sign into the comm panel. "Falcon to Citadel Landing," she said, voice steady. The Drathari traffic controller responded with a buzz and a click. "You may proceed. Welcome to Drathari space." Mare lifted her chin. She flipped the shield switch to max, rolled back her nerves, and eased the Falcon toward the great landing bay. The landing bay gaped like a dark void between two colossal spires. Drathari guards stood at equal distances, their lanky forms framed by bioluminescent vines that crawled along the walls. Each guard wore armor that shimmered like oil on water. They did not move as Mare guided the ship down. They did not blink when her engines roared. They simply waited. The Falcon's wheels squealed as they met the floor. Mare cut the engines and unhooked her harness. She took a deep breath. Every instinct screamed, "Flight!" But she forced herself to stay calm. She reached for her helmet, the human flag painted on its side. In a world of strange species, her flag was a promise. This was one of us. She stepped onto the ramp. The air tasted faintly of ozone and something sweeter, like night-blooming flowers. Ahead stood a single Drathari soldier. His eyes glowed pale green. His jaw was sharp, jutting. Mare raised her hand in greeting. The soldier did not return the gesture. Instead, he pointed her forward with a long, slender finger. She walked past rows of idle shuttles and landed cargo crates. Each step echoed in the silent hall. The architecture here was alive. Walls shifted like great beasts breathing. Doors opened only when she pressed her palm to a strange symbol carved in pulsating light. Hallways curved back on themselves. Mare kept her instincts sharp, marking each turn by the color of the luminescent veins. In every corridor, alien nobles watched from high balconies. Their eyes glittered with curiosity and scorn. Rumors said they placed bets on Mare's success. Some thought she would die in a trap. Others whispered that she would flee in disgrace. Mare felt their gazes like icy needles on her back, but she kept her head high. She would not give them the satisfaction of fear. After what felt like an hour, Mare reached the inner gate. Two massive doors stood sealed. The metal was black as night, but veins of blue seared across its surface. Strange runes glowed faintly along the edges. With a hiss, the doors slid open at her approach. She did not flinch. She had faced worse when she was a Marine in Earth's forces. Beyond the gate lay a courtyard bright with bioluminescent plants. Trees with silver leaves whispered in the windless air. A pool of glowing water reflected the pale sky of the citadel. At the center of the courtyard stood a stone dais. Carved upon it was the image of the alien queen, a tall figure with 4 arms, eyes like molten gold, and a crown of living crystal. Mare paused at the edge of the pool. She removed her helmet and drank deeply from her canteen. The water tasted like cold metal. She swallowed, wiping her mouth on her sleeve. She knelt and tied a small ribbon around her wrist, a token from her sister back on Earth. It read, "Be brave." She smiled grimly. She had no choice now. The die was cast. As she stood, a soft chime echoed through the courtyard. The luminescent vines pulsed in time. Then, from the shadows, came a voice. It was not harsh. It was not kind. It was simply curious. Human, it said. Mare turned. There at the far end of the courtyard stood the Queen's lieutenant. He was tall, with skin like polished jade and eyes that glowed silver. Gentle ridges ran down his skull. He wore a long robe woven of living silk. He did not move a muscle as he studied Mare. She straightened her back. "Lieutenant Pellar," she said. She had found his name in the bits of data she could scrape. "I presume you will escort me to the Queen?" He bowed once, slow and regal. "That is the custom," he said. His voice had an echo, as if multiple mouths spoke at once. "But first, you must prove your worth. Many aliens have come. None have passed the trials." Mare let her eyes travel across the courtyard. She saw 3 stone pillars, each carved with different symbols: a dagger, a mask, a scale. She guessed these were part of the trial. She took a breath. Her back still, stung from the last boarding operation she had led. Her arm bore the scar of a plasma burn. All that pain felt distant now. She raised her chin and met the lieutenant's gaze. "Trials are welcome," she said. "On Earth we know that true strength comes from facing our fears." He inclined, his head. "Very well. Follow me." Without another word, he turned and glided toward the first pillar. Mare fell into step behind him. As they walked, the palace walls shifted again, like living creatures adjusting to their passage. The lieutenant paused before the first pillar marked with the dagger symbol. He placed his hand on the carving. It glowed white. A door opened in, the ground beside it. Mare peered in. She saw only darkness. Her heart thudded. She felt the weight of countless eyes upon her. Then she squared her shoulders and stepped forward. "After you," she said. He did not move. Instead, he watched as Mare climbed down into the void. The door slid shut behind her with a hiss that sounded like a war drum. She landed on cold stone. She heard the distant click of mechanisms starting. A trap, she smiled. On Earth, she had learned that traps were just puzzles in disguise. She reached into her pack and pulled out a length of paracord. She tied one end to a rock and the other to her belt. She felt the familiar thrill of the unknown. Above her, she knew the palace would judge her. It would weigh her courage, her wit, and her will. She would face darkness and doubt. Yet she had already won the most important battle. She had dared to try. And in that moment, in the heart of the Elthar expanse, humanity's tale took its first step. Captain Marisol Mare Reyes climbed out of the hidden pit and pressed herself against the cold stone wall. The trapdoor above sealed with a hiss, cutting off the faint blue light from the courtyard. She stood in a narrow corridor lit by a single line of bioluminescent veins running along the ceiling. The air smelled of metal and damp earth. Her heart pounded, but her breathing was steady. She checked the paracord tied to her belt, her lifeline to the courtyard above. Slowly, she tested the floor with her boot. No pressure plates, no glowing runes. Good. She moved forward, every sense alert. The corridor walls shifted as she passed, narrowing here, then widening into small alcoves there. The living architecture of the Drathari Palace was said to judge every visitor, closing off its strangers, opening for the worthy. Mare would not give it reason to close on her. Ahead, 2 glowing glyphs appeared on the wall, side by side. One showed a swirling spiral. The other, a pulsing crystal. Mare frowned. Which was the correct path? A wrong choice might spring another trap. She tapped the paracord against her thigh, thinking. On Earth, old mining tunnels sometimes use similar glyphs to mark safe exits. Spirals meant looped, crystals meant solid. Here she guessed the crystal would lead forward. The spiral led back to the pit. She pressed her palm on the crystal glyph. A soft chime echoed. The floor vibrated, and a hidden panel slid open, revealing a short stairway down. She paused, then descended, careful not to trip. At the bottom, the stair opened into a vast hall lined with statues of Drathari ancestors. Each statue held a weapon, spears, staffs, and long curved blades. Their eyes were hollow, but the hall felt watched. Mare kept her rifle ready. Though she did not expect live guards here, the palace had surprised her before. She stepped between the statues, her boots echoing. A sudden gust of cold air swept the hall. She shivered and hugged her jacket tighter. The bioluminescent vines above glowed brighter, revealing more of the ceiling. Intricate carvings of cosmic scenes, stars collapsing into suns, worlds forming from dust. She admired the artistry for a moment. The Drathari valued knowledge and history. Humans on Earth burned too many records, lost too many stories. Here their ancestors' memories were carved in stone and light. Mare smiled, feeling a kinship across species. She whispered, "Worth remembering." At the far end of the hall, two heavy doors stood closed. Runes pulsed with blue light. She approached slowly. Every story she had read warned of the chamber of whispers behind these doors, a test of mind over matter. To pass, a visitor must ignore voices that echoed doubts and fears. Those who failed often turned on themselves. Mare steadied her breath and reached out. Instead of touching the runes, she placed her gun's sight against the door and fired a single stun round. The bullet struck the rune cluster, splintering it with a crackling sound. The doors groaned and slowly opened. She stepped inside. The doors slid shut behind her. The hall plunged into darkness. Whispered voices drifted from all directions. "You will die here. They will laugh. Turn back." Mare's pulse raced. She gripped her rifle tighter and switched on its flashlight. The beam swept across the chamber. 4 pillars circled a shallow pit at the center. The floor was covered in fine dust. Each pillar bore a rune matching one of the voices. Mare moved toward the first pillar. A voice hissed, "You are weak." She raised her head and shouted, "I am not weak." The pillar's rune dimmed. She crossed to the next. "You are alone." She thought of her crew on Orion Station, her sister back on Earth, the friends she had made. "I am never alone." The rune flickered. The third pillar. "You will fail." She pictured every mission she had led, every time she had survived. "I never fail." The rune faded. Only the final pillar remained, its rune glowing bright. A voice as deep as thunder said, "You are nothing." Mare's heart twisted. She closed her eyes. She remembered the ribbon on her wrist, her sister's words, "Be brave." She raised her head and spoke softly, "I am human." The rune shattered into motes of light that drifted upward. The chamber brightened. A panel slid aside, revealing a staircase leading up. Mare climbed, every step a victory over doubt. At the top, she emerged into a wide gallery filled with holographic maps of Drathari worlds. The walls were black glass. From one corner, Lieutenant Pilar watched her approach, arms folded. He said nothing, but his silver eyes glowed with new interest. "Few have banished the whispers," he said. "Fewer still with your resolve." His voice carried no praise, only observation. Mare nodded. "On Earth, we learn to face our inner demons." Pilar inclined his head and turned. The gallery, doors slid open before them. Beyond lay a long corridor crowded with drifting platforms. Each platform moved in a slow, endless loop. They spanned a wide chasm, connecting to the next level. No railings, no safety nets. One misstep meant a plunge into the abyss. Mare paused at the first platform. Below, blue-green lights hinted at deep water far beneath, but no one knew if it was water or acid. Pilar glided onto the platform and motioned for her to follow. Mare clasped the paracord firmly, tied an extra loop around her wrist, just in case. She stepped onto the moving surface. It rocked gently. She took a deep breath, looked straight ahead, and walked. The platform shuddered with her weight. Halfway across, the rumble of the palace shifted, a distant tremor that knocked her off balance. She stumbled, heart in her throat. Instinct kicked in. She pulled on her belt loop to steady herself. Her makeshift harness held. She righted her steps and pressed on. Paler watched, unflinching. When Mare reached the far side, she exhaled in relief. Good, Pilar said. Few can hold their nerve here. Mare gave a tired smile. On Earth, we cross broken bridges every day. They passed into a smaller chamber where walls curved like the inside of a shell. The floor was polished crystal. In the center stood a table covered with small metal, orbs. When Mare approached, the orbs lifted into the air, spinning slowly. Palar explained, "These are empathy stones. They show you the memories of those who came before." One orb drifted toward Mare and shimmered. She peered into it and saw a scene. A Drathari soldier training a young recruit, teaching her the art of diplomacy. Another orb showed a human child, playing with a toy starship. Mare recognized the hope in that child's eyes. Her chest tightened. Pilar watched her gaze. These stones ask, "What will you add to our story?" Mare reached out and touched the orb of the human child. In that instant, she felt warmth and longing. She whispered, "I will bring courage." The orb dissolved into motes of silver light. The chamber doors opened again, revealing a grand archway carved with the image of the alien queen. Silver vines curled around her forearms, and her eyes glowed gold. Mare swallowed. She was closer than ever to the heart of the palace. Pilar stepped aside. Beyond that arch is the queen's antechamber. There, your final judgment waits. He paused. But no one has passed her trial yet. Mare gave a firm nod. I will be first. As she stepped under the archway, the doors behind her slid shut. The runes above flickered and a hush fell. Mare's breath caught. Ahead lay the chamber of ultimate truth, and the alien queen herself. For a moment she hesitated. Then she squared her shoulders and walked forward, ready to face whatever awaited. The stakes had never been higher, and the galaxy watched with bated breath. Marisol Mare Reyes stepped through the grand archway and entered the alien queen's antechamber. Bioluminescent vines wound around crystalline pillars. The air thrummed with quiet power. A soft blue light glowed beneath her boots, tracing a path toward the dais where the queen waited. The chamber stretched wide, larger than any hall Mare had ever seen. Its walls curved upward into a dome patterned with living constellations. Each star pulsed gently, as if breathing in time with the palace itself. The hush was complete. No echoes, no distant hums, only the soft patter of Mare's boots on the glassy floor. At the center, the alien queen sat upon a throne carved from a single shard of obsidian crystal. She appeared tall and elegant, her forearms crossed before her. Golden eyes glowed like molten metal. Her skin was smooth as stone and shaded deep indigo. A crown of clear, living crystal floated just above her brow, its facets reflecting the chamber's soft light. Around the dais, a semicircle of alien dignitaries stood on raised platforms. Their forms varied widely. Some had slender bodies with wings folded at their backs. Others bore thick hides and horns like ancient beasts. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to disdain. All watched Mare with unreadable eyes. Mare forced herself to slow her breathing. She remembered her training. Stand tall, speak clearly, command respect. She knelt at the base of the dais and bowed her head once, folding her arms across her chest. The queen's voice filled the chamber, low and resonant. "Human," she said, "you have passed the trials of body and mind, yet the greatest test remains." She lifted one hand. Instantly, 5 floating orbs of light appeared above the dais. Each orb contained an image, a battlefield strewn with wreckage, a starving refugee camp, a thriving garden teeming with life, a broken starship drifting in space, and a council chamber full of leaders. These are visions of our worlds, the Queen continued. They show our greatest failures and our highest hopes. You must choose one and speak for or against it. Your words will shape your fate. Speak poorly, and you leave here only as dust. Mare's pulse leapt. Public speaking before a council of powerful beings, this was more daunting than any trap or puzzle she had faced. She rose to her feet, squared her shoulders, and studied the orbs. The first orb showed the battlefield, soldiers of many races locked in endless war. The second orb, the refugee camp, displayed emaciated aliens huddled under meager shelters. The third orb, the lush garden, glowed with vibrant plants and clear streams. The fourth orb, the broken starship, drifted alone in a void of black. The fifth orb, the council chamber, depicted diplomats from dozens of species seated around a round table. Mare weighed her options. Each vision held risk. To defend the war could be seen as brutality. To condemn it outright might seem naive. The refugee camp spoke of suffering, but choosing it risked despair. The garden was beautiful but offered no challenge. The broken ship suggested isolation. The council offered unity, yet unity was fragile. Her gaze settled on the fifth orb. A council of leaders. This vision mirrored the council before her now. She stepped forward, addressing both the orb and the dignitaries. Honored council, I choose this vision, she said, voice clear. I speak for unity. She paused, letting her words fill the chamber. On Earth, we learned that our greatest strength is working together. Alone, a starship drifts. Alone, a garden withers without tending. Alone, war rages unchecked and suffering knows no end. The orb glowed brighter. Mare drew breath and continued. Unity brings hope. When leaders share ideas, they build peace. When workers share effort, they grow gardens that feed millions. When nations choose diplomacy over conflict, refugees find shelter instead of fear. We are stronger as one. A murmur rose among the dignitaries. Some nodded, others frowned. The orb's light pulsed, then faded, replaced by the image of two hands clasped. One human, one Drathari. The Queen's eyes gleamed. Your words carry weight, human, she said. But tell us, what of betrayal? What if unity fails? Mary squared her shoulders. Betrayal is always a danger, but it does not mean we abandon trust. On Earth, treaties were broken, and wars were born. Yet we learned to build new agreements. We learned to guard against treachery with transparency and shared responsibility. Unity demands effort from all sides. She glanced at the refugee camp orb, now dim at the side. She gestured toward it. We must remember the cost when we fail to unite. But if we only choose safety and isolation, that cost grows. True unity faces risk but multiplies reward. The Queen leaned forward. Courageous words. Yet I have felt your mind through the palace walls. I know your heart carries fear, of loss, of regret. Mare met the Queen's gaze without flinching. Fear is part of hope. If we never hoped, we would never fear. But we would also never do anything great. A hush fell. Then, one by one, the dignitaries raised their hands, some in approval, some in reservation. A soft chime echoed, and the chamber's walls pulsed with gentle light. The Queen nodded once. You have spoken well, yet your true test is not words, it is action. She raised two arms, palm out. Two beams of light shot from her crown and enveloped Mare. A warmth spread through Mare's body, and she felt her mind open as though the palace itself surveyed her soul. Images flashed, her battles, her losses, her laughter with friends, her nightmares. She clenched her teeth against the onrush of emotion. She focused on a single thought. Unity. Every memory filtered through that lens. Pain became lesson, loss became motivation, joy became promise. Then the light faded. Mare sagged on her feet, shaking but still standing. The queen regarded her silently. Finally, the queen spoke. No one has ever withstood the council's truth probe with such clarity of purpose. You are different from those who came before. She paused, letting the words echo in the vast chamber. Tomorrow, you will face the final trial beyond. Mere proof of worth. But for now, you have won respect. A soft murmur of approval rippled around the room. Mare wiped her brow. Her uniform was damp with sweat, but her spirit burned bright. She bowed to the queen once more, then turned and exited the antechamber escorted by Lieutenant Pilar. Outside, the courtyard gates had opened to receive her. The pale moonlight cast long shadows across the bioluminescent vines. Mare inhaled, the cool night air tasting freedom and anticipation. Behind her, the queen's voice followed. Rest now, human. At dawn, the Midnight Council ends, with a choice that only you can make. Mare's heart pounded with questions. What final trial awaited her? Would she survive until dawn? She looked out at the silent spires of the citadel, gleaming under alien stars, and whispered to herself, I've come this far. I won't turn back. And with that promise, she melted into the shifting corridors, every step guided by determination, and by the weight of the Midnight Council's gaze. Captain Marisol Mary Reyes woke before dawn in the guest chamber high in the Drathari Palace. The walls pulsed faint blue light, breathing like a living creature. She dressed quickly, tightening her jacket and checking the ribbon from her sister still tied on her wrist. Today would bring the council's final debate. If she spoke well, she might earn an alliance. If she spoke poorly, no one knew what fate awaited. She rode an elevator carved from living crystal down to the grand hall where the council would convene. The doors parted silently to reveal hundreds of alien delegates seated in tiered rings. Their faces reflected every shape and color, scaled, feathered, horned, and smooth. All eyes fixed on the central platform, where the alien queen sat on her throne of black obsidian. Lieutenant Pilar escorted Mare to a podium before the dais. The queen's voice echoed through the hall. You have won our respect, human. Now defend humanity's place among us. Speak, so we may judge. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Many expected Mare to fail that final test of words. Some whispered she would be cut down before she spoke. Mare drew a deep breath and stepped forward. An ambassador of the Gathari, tall and winged, rose first. His voice was like wind through trees. Humans are brash and quick to war. We have seen your starships bomb worlds without mercy. Why should we trust you with knowledge of our secrets? His words rippled through the hall. Mare felt the weight of their doubt. When the Gathari ambassador finished, Mare lifted her chin. On Earth we did make war, she said, voice firm but calm. But we learned from it. We built monuments to peace. We wrote treaties and held councils much like this one. Yes, we have wounded worlds, but we also healed them. She spoke clearly, choosing each word with care. The next speaker rose. Crystal-skinned envoy from the Lyran chorus, her voice a tinkling melody. Your words ring sweet, human, but talk is no cure. Where is your proof? She spread slender hands to show empty air. A few delegates laughed. Mare's heart pounded. She stepped closer to the edge of the podium. I offer proof, she replied. My ship's logs show human aid sent to starving colonies, medical teams we dispatched to cure alien diseases, engineers who rebuilt damaged starships, and my own actions. I risked my life for strangers in this palace. She held out a hollow emitter. With a flick of her thumb, images played. In the air, starving refugees, human doctors, thriving cities lit by human-built reactors. Gasps filled the hall. The hollow showed a battered freighter adrift in space. Next, human engineers repaired its hull beneath drifting stars. Finally, children of many species laughed as they ran through a meadow. The queen's golden eyes glowed, brighter. A hush followed. Then a representative of the Obsidian clans, a hulking figure in dark armor, stood. All that is well and good, human. But what of your appetite for conquest? You once invaded the Drathari border in search of resources. He banged a fist on his chest plate. Some delegates cheered. Others frowned. Mare's jaw tightened. "We did push into your space once," she admitted. "We made mistakes, but we also admitted them. We apologized and paid reparations. We opened our markets and invited your traders. We honored our debts. True strength is not in taking what you want, but in making amends when you are wrong." A ripple of approval ran through the gallery. Mare felt hope blossom. She raised her voice. "Humanity is not perfect, but we do not hide our faults. We learn from them. We write them into our histories so future generations do not repeat the same errors. That is the power I offer you." As she spoke, the queen leaned forward, her hands resting lightly on her throne's arms. The bioluminescent vines around her shimmered with each heartbeat. At the end of Mare's speech, the queen raised a single finger. "You speak of growth through fault, yet growth demands sacrifice. Will you trust us with that sacrifice?" Mare met the queen's gaze without wavering. "I will," she said, "and I ask you to trust humanity's capacity for good. Give us access to your libraries, share your science. In return, we will share our medicine, our art, our spirit of exploration." A drumbeat of excitement pulsed through the hall. The queen closed her eyes for a moment, as if weighing Mare's words in her mind. Then she opened them and stood.
"Very well." Her voice boomed like distant thunder. "Let it be known that humanity has proven its value."
"I grant you, Captain Reyes, the honor of alliance." Cheers erupted, some cautious, some jubilant. Delegates rose and clapped. Mare felt warmth flood her chest. But just as the applause reached its peak, a sharp crack rang out. Energy bolts sizzled past the edges of the platform, striking pillars and sending shards of crystal flying. Cries of alarm shattered the celebration. The hall plunged into chaos. Delegates screamed and dove for cover. Dust and debris filled the air. Mare instinctively threw up her arms to shield herself. A searing pain tore across her shoulder. She staggered but stayed upright, gun already in hand. Lieutenant Pilar materialized beside her, eyes wide. "Assassins!" he shouted. "They will kill us both!" Mare spun on her heels. At the back of the platform, dark figures in civilian robes melted from the shadows. Their weapons glowed red with lethal energy. One of them raised a wrist-mounted launcher, firing again. The blast blew a hole in the platform railing, and the crew would have plunged into the abyss below if not for Mare's quick reflexes. She fired back, her stun round striking an assassin's chest. He convulsed and dropped his weapon. Another lunged at Pilar. Mare tackled the attacker, sending him sprawling. She kicked the weapon away and pinned him with her boot. Above the din, the queen's voice cut through. "Stop this treachery." Two more energy bolts arced out from the dais, pinning fleeing assassins to the walls in glowing blue cuffs. The queen's own aura flared, and she descended the steps to stand between Mare and Pilar. Her eyes glowed gold with fury. "You who betray the bond of alliance know this. Your cowardice will not stand." She snapped her fingers. The remaining assassins dropped their weapons, mouths gaping. Palace guards surged into the hall, securing the chamber. Mare stood panting, her shoulder wound already stinging. Pilar helped her upright. The queen swept her gaze across the shaken delegates. "Let this be the last act of violence in my presence," she declared. "From this day forward, let all disputes be settled by word and accord." The hall fell silent. Delegates glanced at one another, shame and relief mingling on their faces. Mare lowered her gun and nodded to the queen. Her heart pounded, but she felt alive with purpose. The queen turned to Mare. "You have faced not only trials of body and mind, but the treachery of your own hosts. Yet you defended me as you defended yourself. That honor is rare." She raised a hand, and the hall's light softened. "Come to the dais." Mare stepped forward. The queen offered her a silver circlet, etched with Drathari runes. "Wear. This is symbol of our new alliance," she said. Mare accepted it with trembling hands, fitting it around her brow. A hush of wonder ran through the crowd. As the queen helped Pelor affix the circlet's clasp, Mare looked out at the assembled dignitaries. In their eyes she saw hope, and a promise that humanity's courage and integrity had won its place among the stars. But even as the hall filled with cautious celebration, Mare's mind raced. Who had ordered the assassination? And what dark forces within the Drathari still opposed unity? She stepped down from the dais, resolved to find the traitors before they could strike again. The dawn of a new alliance had begun, but the shadows of doubt lurked still, waiting for their chance to return. Blood and dust swirled in the grand hall as the last echoes of the assassination attempt faded. Captain Marisol Mare Reyes pressed a hand to her bleeding shoulder. She tasted copper on her tongue and grit in her throat. Behind her, the Alien Queen's guards secured the chamber. Delegates crouched in shocked silence, their eyes wide with fear and awe. Mare took a steadying breath. She refused to let panic take hold. She knelt beside the wounded assassin she had pinned. His dark robe was singed and his energy weapon lay useless at his side. She pulled up the assassin's sleeve and read the tattooed symbol on his forearm, a twisted spiral entwined with a broken crown, the mark of the dissident hand, a secret faction that opposed the queen's rule. Lieutenant Pelor knelt beside her. His jade skin was smeared with dust but otherwise unhurt. He traced the symbol with his fingertip. "The dissident hand," he said quietly. "They believe the queen betrays Drathari tradition by allying with outsiders." His silver eyes flicked to Mare. "They strike now before your alliance is cemented." Mare nodded. She reached up and touched the silver circlet the queen had placed on her brow. It glowed faintly with runes of protection. "Then we stop them. Here." She stood, grim determination shining in her eyes. At the dais, the alien queen raised her hands. The hall fell silent. Her golden eyes flicked between Mare and the bound assassin. "Captain Reyes," she said, voice resonant, "you have proven your courage again. Will you lead us to root out these traitors?" Mare met the queen's gaze without hesitation. "Yes, your majesty. I will help you find and stop every hand behind this plot." A murmur of approval rose among the delegates. Even the most cautious Drathari saw the strength in Mare's resolve. The queen inclined her head. "Then let it be so. Pelor, assemble a guard. Mare, you will guide us through the palace's secret passages." Within moments, Pelor returned with a dozen armored guards. Their spears crackled with blue energy. Mare led them from the grand hall into the shifting corridors of the palace. The air smelled of ozone and damp stone. The bioluminescent vines whispered overhead as if gossiping about the intruders. "The dissident hand uses hidden tunnels beneath the citadel," Pelor explained as they walked. "Their leader, Varash, commands from a chamber below the eastern wing. We must move quickly. He will flee at first sign of discovery." Mare consulted her datapad, where she had marked the secret entrances she'd discovered during her trials. "Here," she said, stopping before a wall panel etched with diminishing spirals. She pressed her palm, and the panel slid open, revealing a narrow stair descending into darkness. The guards raised their spears and followed. Mare switched on her helmet light. The stair wound down in tight coils. Mare's wound throbbed, but adrenaline dulled the pain. At the bottom, they entered a low tunnel carved directly into the living rock beneath the palace. Faint blue crystals embedded in the walls cast an eerie glow. "Stay close," Mare whispered. "The hand has traps." She brushed her rifle's sight over the walls. Sure enough, she spotted pressure plates and thin tripwires. She tapped each wire with the barrel, and the guards carefully disarmed the traps as they advanced. The tunnel forked. Pelor consulted a map etched into his memory. "Left leads toward the servant quarters," he said. "Right goes deeper under the eastern wing." Mare nodded and led them right. They reached a heavy door of black metal reinforced with silver filaments. Outside, she heard muffled voices, Drathari accents urgent and low. Mare's heart pounded. She tapped the door with her rifle butt. No sound. It must be shielded. She knelt and produced a small energy disruptor from her pack. With a hiss, it unraveled the shield, and the door slid open. Inside stood a circular chamber, lit by glowing fungus on the walls. Tables were strewn, with schematics, maps of the palace, schedules of queens' appearances, lists of loyalists. At the center, a tall figure cloaked in shadow barked orders to a dozen armed followers. His voice was harsh, dripping with contempt. Mare recognized him, Varash, the dissident leader. He wore the same spiral and broken crown tattoo on his neck. Mare raised her rifle. "Freeze!" she shouted. The guards stormed in, spears at the ready. Varash spun, drawing a blade that crackled with red energy. "You dare invade my sanctum?" he snarled. Varash lunged at Mare. She sidestepped and fired a stun round, catching him in the shoulder. He howled and staggered. The guards seized the followers, binding them in energy cuffs. Varash slumped to one knee, rage blazing in his eyes. Mare cuffed him too. She hissed in his ear, "Your plot ends here." He spat, but she did not flinch. Lieutenant Pilar entered, his eyes cold. "You will be judged for treason and murder," he said. Varash glared, then sagged, knowing his cause was lost. Mare signaled the guards to escort the prisoners back to the Grand Hall for trial. The tunnel door sealed behind them. In the upper corridors, the first rays of Drathic's sun filtered through colored glass, casting shifting patterns on the floors. Mare paused on a balcony overlooking the courtyard. Below, palace engineers tended to damaged pillars. Delegates peered from windows, whispering with awe and hope. Pilar joined her. "You have done more than win an alliance," he said softly. "You have saved the palace from internal ruin." He placed a hand on her shoulder. Mare smiled, exhaustion and relief mingling in her chest. They descended to the main courtyard, where the queen awaited. Her 4 arms were folded and her golden eyes glowed warmly. Around her, Drathari guards herded the bound traitors. Delegates gathered, eager for justice. The queen's voice rang out. "Today we see that unity is not merely words but actions. Captain Reyes led this effort with courage and wisdom. For this I thank you." She turned to Varash. "You have sought to destroy the bond I offer. For your crimes you are banished to the outer chasms. There you will build new life, or perish, trying." Varash's followers wailed as they were herded away. The delegates watched in silence. The queen stepped forward and placed a hand on Mare's shoulder. "Human," she said, "you have proven your worth beyond measure. You did not falter when faced with treachery. You stood for peace when guns spat fire. You saved my people from themselves." Mare bowed her head. "Your Majesty, it was my honor." The queen's voice softened. "Let this day be remembered as the dawn of alliance. Let our peoples share knowledge, art, and dreams, and let Captain Reyes be our first ambassador to human worlds." A cheer rose from the delegates. Mare felt tears sting her eyes. She thought of Earth, of her sister, of every human who had doubted her. Now, at the dawn of a new age, she carried the hopes of 2 civilizations on her shoulders. As the crowd dispersed to celebrate, the queen placed a hand on Mare's sash. "Rest now, Mare Reyes. Tomorrow you travel home with our blessings." Her 4 arms gestured in a graceful bow. "Go, and remember, once you return, our worlds will never be the same." Mare looked into the queen's molten gold eyes and nodded. "I will not forget." The first starships of the Drathari fleet rose above the citadel's spires, their engines glowing blue. Mare watched as they formed a banner in the sky, a promise of unity. In that moment, she knew humanity's story had changed forever. She turned back to the palace, its living walls humming with life. The corridors that once tested her were now halls of memory and promise. She felt a fierce pride. She, one human, had dared to spend a night with the alien queen, and she had ushered in the dawn of a new alliance. With a final glance at the rising ships, Mare headed for the landing bay. A new mission awaited, to carry the queen's gift of friendship to Earth. The galaxy would soon know that no one, no matter how alien or human, could stand against the power of unity.